woman walks into a tattoo parlor and tells the artist that she wants a tattoo of Santa Claus on her inner right thigh and a Thanksgiving turkey on her inner left thigh. The artist says, "Ma'am, that's kinda strange. Might I ask why you want those particular tattoos there?" "Well," she says, "my husband's always been that there's nothing good in the house to eat between Thanksgiving and Christmas, so I thought I would fix that." Teenage girl comes home from school and asks her mother, "Is it true what Rita just told me? That babies come out of the same place where boys put their teeth?" "Yes, dear," replies her mother, pleased that the subject has finally come up and she won't have to explain it to her daughter. "But when a baby's actually born," responded the teenager, "how does it get past your teeth?" American businessman was in Japan. He hired a local hook and was going at it all night with her. She kept screaming "Fujifu, Fujifu," which the guy took to be pleasurable. The next day he was golfing with his Japanese counterparts and he got a hole-in-one. Wanting to impress the clients, he said "Fujifu." The Japanese client looked confused and said, "No, you got the right hole." Couple left the church and arrived at the hotel when they were spending the first night of their honeymoon. They opened the champagne and began undressing. When the groom removed his socks, his new wife asked, "Ew, what's wrong with your feet? Your toes look all mangled and weird. Why are your feet so gross?" "I had polio as a child," he answered. "You mean polio?" she asked. "No, polio. The disease only affected my toes." The bride was satisfied with this explanation and they continued undressing. When the groom took off his pants, the bride once again wrinkled up her nose. "What's wrong with your knees?" she asked. "They're all lumpy and deformed. As a child, I also had measles," he explained. "You mean measles?" she asked. "No, measles. It was a strange illness that only affected my knees." The new bride had to be satisfied with his answer. As the undressing continued, her husband at last removed his underwear. "Don't tell me," she said. "Let me guess. Small and was approached by a coworker at lunch who invited him out for a few beers after work. The man said that his wife would never go for it, that she didn't allow him to go drinking with the guys after work. The coworker suggested a way to overcome that problem. "When you get home tonight, sneak into the house, slide down under the sheets, gently pull down your wife's panties and give her Women love it, and believe me, she'll never mention that you were out late with the boys." So the man agreed to try it and went out and enjoyed himself. Late that night, he sneaked into the house, slid down under the sheets, gently slid down his wife's panties and gave her oral. She moaned and groaned with pleasure, but after a little while he realized he had to take a leak, so he told her he'd be right back. He got out of bed and walked down the hall to the bathroom. When he opened the door and went in, he was very surprised to see his wife sitting on the toilet. "How did you get in here?" he asked. "Shh," she replied. "You'll wake my mother." Is a guy who really takes care of his body. He lifts weights and jogs 5 miles every day. One morning he looks into the mirror and admires his body. He notices that he's really suntanned all over except one part and he decided to do something about it. He goes to the beach, completely undresses and buries himself in the sand except for that one part sticking out. 2 little old ladies are strolling along the beach and one looks down and says, "There really is no justice in the world." The other little old lady says, "What do you mean?" The first little old lady says, "Look at that. When I was 10 years old, I was afraid of it. When I was 20 years old, I was curious about it. When I was 30 years old, I enjoyed it. When I was 40 years old, I asked for it. When I was 50 years old, I paid for it. When I was 60 years old, I prayed for it. When I was 70 years old, I forgot about it. And now that I'm 80, the damn things are growing wild. A woman woke in the middle of the night to find her husband missing from their bed. In the stillness of the house, she could hear a muffled sound downstairs. She went downstairs and looked all around, finally finding her husband in the basement, crouched in the corner, facing the wall and sobbing. "What's wrong with you?" she asked him. "Remember when your father caught us having when you were 18? He replied. "And remember he said I had two choices? I could either marry you or spend the next 20 years in prison." Baffled, she said, "Yes, I remember, so what?" The man responded, "I would have been a free man today." 54-year-old accountant leaves a letter for his wife one Friday evening that reads, "Dear wife, I am 54, and by the time you receive this letter, I will be at the Grand Hotel with my beautiful and attractive 18-year-old secretary. When he arrives at the hotel, there's a letter waiting for him that reads as follows: Dear husband, I too am 54, and by the time you receive this letter, I will be at the Breakwater Hotel with my handsome and whirly 18-year-old boy toy. You, being an accountant, will know that 18 goes into 54 more many times than 54 goes into 18. Man had just bought a computer, but he didn't know how to set it up, so he got this girl to do it for him. When she asked him what his password was going to be, he said, trying to be funny, She didn't laugh at him, but she laughed at the response that came up. Password rejected, not long enough. Man walks into the pharmacy and says, I need some birth control pills for my 12-year-old daughter. The man behind the counter replies, your 12-year-old daughter is already active in bed? The dad says, no, she just lies there like her mother. Woman came up behind her husband while he was enjoying his morning coffee and slapped him on the back of the head. I found a piece of paper in your pocket of your pants with the name Mary Lou written on it, she said, furious. You had better have a good explanation. Calm down, honey, the man replied. Remember last week when I was at the dog track? That was the name of the dog I bet on. The next morning, his wife snuck up on him and smacked him again. What was that for? He complained. The wife said, your dog called last night. One day, a scientist goes to a school where he's trying to do an experiment on children to see how good their taste buds are. He goes into a random classroom and explains to the class what he will be doing with them today. The class is excited and agrees to help him. The scientist first blindfolds the children. Then he tells them that he will put a certain flavor of candy in front of them. He then tells them to eat it and tell him what flavor they think it is. The first candy all the children get right. It is cherry. The second as well. It is orange. But the last one is the hardest. None of the children can get it. So the scientist gives them a clue. He says it's what your mom might call your dad. A girl in surprise yells out, I know, I know. Then the scientist says, well, what is it? Then she says the flavor is The children in horror spit it out. The real flavor was honey.